So the other day, we made a video talking about the Auston Matthews extension, and in that video, I kind of joked around at the beginning saying, hey, the first overall pick has signed his extension, it's a big deal, everybody! And we opened the video up by talking about Alexis Lafreniere, because nobody was talking about Alexis Lafreniere, everybody was talking about Matthews. It happened a few hours later. So, this video instead is going to be the Laf video. And it's not necessarily going to be directly about the contract extension per se, but what this contract extension does for the Rangers, for Lafreniere himself, for the flexibility going long-term into the next few years, and Elliotte Friedman's take as to how it all works. So, Alexis Lafreniere, first overall pick 2020, kind of struggling the past few years. We kind of know that he wasn't off to a hot start in his NHL career, but he did have 39 points in 81 games played last season, a pretty good improvement from years past. Sure, is it first overall caliber production? Probably not. You had seen other first overall picks in prior years do better than Lafreniere's third year in the NHL in their first years, but Lafreniere is part of a new wave of first overall picks that don't seem to be too hot out of the gate, and because of his deployment, because of the opportunities, and because of his, let's just say, less than translatable game from the QMJHL to the NHL, it's taken Lafreniere a lot longer to break out, and you could definitely say he hasn't done that yet. Lafreniere is 21 years old, and coming off of his ELC, he had signed a 2-year extension worth $2.325 million a year. This is one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, entry-level to extension type of deals we have seen for a first overall pick in a long time. I forgot what the number was, but it's been ages since we've seen a guy sign for this cheap after being a first overall pick and signing his first contract. However, when it comes to the way this deal is structured, a 2-year deal is really interesting. Of course, it's not locking him in long term, you're not going out there and giving any guarantees to the guy, but you're also setting it up so that if Lafreniere has a pretty good breakout in 23-24 or 24-25, he has a chance to get the bag. Now, is it likely that he breaks out in a significant magnitude over the next 2 seasons? I don't know, you can be the judge of that. But what if you have yourselves a situation where Lafreniere does not break out? He still kind of sticks around in this hockey limbo where he's a middle six guy that's not really good enough to be a mainstay top line player. He's not given first power play time. He doesn't really show off that he's worth first power play time. What if things don't go well? This is what Elliotte Friedman said on the recent edition of the 32 Thoughts podcast. Everyone is kind of in a position where they're saying, look, we're going to try this under a new coach and see where it goes. If it's not good, next summer, you can move him at a number that I think teams can handle, because I just think if it's another year like this, they're probably going to have to move on. To me, it's a 2-year deal, but it's a 1-year deal in New York, and then we see. Elliotte Friedman is essentially talking about this being the quote-unquote last chance for Alexis Lafreniere. How this guy is on a 1-year deal with the Rangers and an extra year wherever else. This is one opportunity under a new coach in Peter Laviolette to show New York Rangers fans and their management that he has what it takes to stick around at this level and be worth that first overall caliber projection. Heck, even if he's not a first overall caliber guy, even if he's just a regular old run-of-the-mill top 6 forward who gets 50 to 60 points, even if he is not a superstar, as long as we see growth, development, and prosperity, then there's a reason to keep him. But if Lafreniere does not do that, if he has another season where you could debate he's not really getting any better, and then he's not really getting the deployment because Laviolette doesn't see value in him and his game, then after 1 year the Rangers can be like, okay, well, it's not working out. Maybe a change of scenery can benefit this guy. And if that's really the case, I honestly would applaud the Rangers for doing something like this, because we've seen with the other guys, Lias Andersson, Vitaly Kravtsov, these guys were given way too long of a leash before getting let go by the Rangers. Not to say that the Rangers were a bad team for holding on to them, but the system, the development, it just wasn't working with the Big Apple. Lias Andersson and Vitaly Kravtsov suffered so much in the Rangers system, and they weren't getting any better, that by the time they ended up getting traded away, their values were already kind of down there, and you didn't really see any growth from these guys afterwards. Vitaly Kravtsov yeeted off to Russia, and now Elias Andersson is still in the AHL. So, for Alexis Lafreniere, in order to avoid that same thing happening, jumping ship early when the guy is only 21, 22 years old, I feel like that's a pretty appropriate move. I feel like it's a more stable type of move to say, hey, Lafreniere, it hasn't worked out since 2020 to now. We're going to trade you away. Hopefully the change of scenery can benefit you. We're not going to hold on to you till 2025 and then trade you away if it's not working out then. Because long story short, the Rangers are in a much better position than they were when they had the Kravtsovs and the Andersons in their developmental system, and they needed these guys to do well. Right now, even if Lafreniere is not a great player, even if he sucks, the Rangers are still going to be okay as a team. They just have themselves a first overall caliber guy that everybody knew was supposed to be a first overall caliber guy, not playing like a first overall caliber guy. And you could blame the coach, you can blame the player, you could blame a lot of people, but at the end of the day, just tossing around blame isn't really going to do anything. Trying to give out change and trying to put this guy in a position to succeed, and if he's not really taking advantage of that, sending him to another team where maybe the opportunities are different, maybe the coaching is much different, maybe the conditioning is different, maybe the strategies are different, and maybe that aligns more so with his internal style of play. Alexis Lafreniere is a good player, and we all know this. It's just, from the expectations to reality, it hasn't been there, translation-wise at least. Sure, is he an okay player to have on your team? Yeah, sure. It's just, there's so much potential here that if you let Lafreniere stick around in a middle to bottom six role, checking role sometimes, maybe secondary power play minutes every few games or so, and he maybe maxes out as a 45, 50-point guy, like, sure, that's not bad. It's not a bad player in the NHL, but you want this guy who has a boatload of potential to fulfill that. And that's not something you're doing for yourself. Not necessarily. Hey, sure, it's great if we have a 90, 100-point superstar on our team. Yeah, it is. But you're also fulfilling this role for him. You don't want this guy to live out his NHL career feeling that he's always had more to give, feeling that he didn't have any opportunities or that he didn't get the keys to the car at least sometime. So, trade him away. If it doesn't work out under Laviolette under 1 year, send him to a team that will give him more opportunities and will allow him to play more of his style. Because if the Rangers end up losing out on Lafreniere and they get some other player in return, some okay roster forward, then that's fine. Like, they don't need Lafreniere to be amazing in order for them to be good. So, if he does become amazing, that's the ultimate benefit. It's just not guaranteed that it goes down like that. So for Elliotte Friedman to label everything like this, where this 2-year extension is really just a 1-year extension for New York and a second year wherever else, I really like this idea, especially if the Rangers are on board, where it's like, yeah, if Lafreniere does not really break out next year, if he's not showing off that he's got a lot of potential still, then we could just trade him away. And other teams are going to want to get that because Lafreniere is going to be 23 years old. Like, he's not going to be that old. There's still going to be a lot of time here. There's still going to be development to be had. And if he's on a cheap contract, like 2.3-something mil, then that's pretty affordable. Not going to lie. If you do get the Lafreniere that breaks out, though, let's say his 40 points last season becomes 50 points next year. Then all of a sudden you have a pretty good, cheap 50-point guy at your disposal. It's a win-win for everybody involved here. The Rangers can keep their guy if he's good, Lafreniere can get a second opportunity if he's not good, and some other team will have their chance at giving this guy his chops. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this Lafreniere contract extension being the perfect trade scenario heading into next year and the year beyond that? Elliotte Friedman on the podcast went out there and said it. I think it's a pretty good idea. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. How do you feel about Friedman's assessment of this situation? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.